Welcome, 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 everybody. This is another week of TransParents. I'm your host, Amber, she, her pronouns. And by the way, if you're following us on TikTok, Moonchild77 is my handle there. We've been trying to get that some more followers there. And this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Jenny. My pronouns are she, her, and you can find me on TikTok at translovingmama.
Yay! So tonight, we're talking about legal landscapes, SCOTUS, Title X, Chevron, LGBT protections, and honestly, what the overturning of some of these precedents will mean for LGBT, or what it could mean for LGBT protections. And I went in and made sure that I pulled up information on the court, history of the court, what its past has been on certain protections, the precedents that have been used to uphold these protections for so many years. Yeah, and we'll talk about all the different nuances of that. Jeffrey, hello, welcome, welcome this evening to the show. Good to have you. But it's, and of course, everybody probably, if you're anywhere at the moment, you've probably heard that Biden decided today that he would just step down and that Harris has been put on the Democratic ticket as the nominee. So it's going to be interesting to see who she picks, or who I guess the Democratic Party picks to be the VP. And I'm very interested to see what their stance is going to be for LGBTQ rights, as well as several other platforms. But that obviously for this show, I do want to know more about what her and her pick would feel. I do know as an attorney general, she worked very hard to protect LGBTQ rights. So I do feel good about that. But we know that some things have been rolled back this year with great concern. And we also know that there's been quite a push with anti-trans legislation over the last 2 years, that it is important that you know who you're voting for. And right now, this shift, I wouldn't say necessarily it may be unexpected, but it definitely opens the question of what is our ticket going to run, or what is that ticket going to run for? So let me go here to my notes so that we can get this started. Okay, so the first thing that I really wanted to go into this evening was, if I could get my notes to pull up, sorry, so I can actually, funny story, right before surgery, I went and got my glasses, and I was so excited because I hit Jenny up and I was like, I got my new glasses, because I thought I would finally be able to see and that we wouldn't have as much glare with these that I wear on here. These are my cheaters that I've been wearing for a while. And I got the new glasses and I can see with them far away, but I can't read with them at all.
I had
So
to go
I'm
the
stuck with the
bifocal
cheaters.
glasses route, and
That's what I'm doing, bifocals.
right, but they're like, well, I did the bifocal contact lenses. These aren't bifocal glasses yet. These prescriptions are like 5 years old, so I am feeling you, and I have lots of glare going on. But I went the bifocal contact lenses route, and whenever I was trying them on in the office, and I would kind of look at something, and I'm like, yeah, this is fine. So I ordered a year's worth of them, and genuinely, like within the first week, I'm like, these, no, this isn't.
Don't work. Yeah, well. See, like I got them, like I literally I put them on and I like put the cheaters away in my purse and we walk out to the car and the first thing I did was pick up my phone and like start to like open it so I can read stuff on my phone. And I'm like, because my mother was driving and I'm looking at the phone going, I can't. Just took them off, pulled out the new ones. I'm like, or the old ones. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I just wanted to be able to see far and close. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to multiple sets. Oh well. So yeah, so I'm cheating. I'm cheating again, but oh well. Okay, so the first thing I want to go into was kind of what Title X or Title IX, what we did to it, what Biden-Harris administration, the last things that they amended to it, and added this year that were supposed to go into place. They recently updated Title IX regulations to include protections against discrimination based on gender identity. This change aims to ensure that all students, regardless of their gender identity, have equal access to educational opportunities and are protected from harassment and discrimination. In federally funded educational programs, the updated regulations clarify that discrimination based on gender identity is a form of sexual discrimination, which Title IX prohibits. These protections are part of a broader effort to promote education equity and create a safe, inclusive environment for all students. However, These new protections have sparked significant legal conflicts between the federal government and several states. Some states have challenged the Biden administration's authority to expand Title IX's definition of sex discrimination to include gender identity. Federal judges in multiple states, including Kansas, Kentucky, Ohio, and Virginia, have issued preliminary injunctions blocking the enforcement of these new regulations, arguing the Department of Education exceeded its authority. These legal battles highlight the ongoing tension between federal efforts to protect rights and state-level resistance based on differing interpretations of Title IX and concerns about the impact on cisgender students. Those legal conflicts have created a patchwork of protections across the country, with some states fully implementing the new Title IX regulations, while others are exempt due to court orders. The inconsistency poses challenges for schools and students as the level of protections against gender identity discrimination varies depending on the state. The ongoing litigation underscores the contentious nature of gender identity protections and the broader debate. And in fact, I think there's actually, where I listed those 4, I do believe there's another one that's been put in place. So there's more like 9 states, I think, that have blocked this. And then you have some states that just come in and say, we're going to completely ignore what Biden and Harris just added, right? Like Arkansas, Huckabee Sanders, that was her first thing that she came out with, was like, oh, no, we're just going to ignore it. And this is federal regulation. And you're muted, by the way, but you might have a barking dog.
I did have a barking dog for a second. I don't know what to say to all that. Just, yeah, I mean, I expect it. I expect it.
Right. Right. And here's a little clue. And I said it last week, and you're going to hear more and more of it. You will hear more of the politics that go into this, because you need to be paying attention to the politics that go into this. Here are the federal judges that are responsible for issuing preliminary injunctions against the Biden administration's Title IX gender identity protections in 14 states. Alaska was Judge Brooms, who was confirmed by President Donald Trump. Idaho, Judge Terry Doughty, confirmed by Donald Trump. Indiana, Judge Danny Reeves, confirmed by George W. Bush. Kansas, Judge Brooms, Donald Trump. Kentucky, Danny Reeves, George Bush. Louisiana, Doughty, Donald Trump. Mississippi, Doughty, Donald Trump. Montana, Doughty, Donald Trump. Ohio, Reeves, Bush. Tennessee, Reeves, Bush. Utah, Brooms, Trump. Virginia, Reeves, Bush. West Virginia, Reeves, Bush. Wyoming, Brooms, Trump.
It's like there's a
3 judges. 3 judges, right, have played roles in saying, no, we're going to block this. And 2 of those were by Trump, and 1 of those was by Bush. But yeah, you see a running theme?
Yeah. They hate our kids. They just hate our kids. I mean, I mean to laugh at it. I get, maybe I'm like a nervous laugher, but I know.
No, I'm a nervous laugher.
Stuff, and I'll see things and they're just horrifying. And I just see myself, I mean, it's nothing but contemptuous laughter and contemptuous smiles. They hate my children. And
right. They made it clear. The RNC agenda last week, they made it clear.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, they hate him. Don't know him. Hate him.
Mm-hmm. No empathy for somebody else who might be different than you. And just but they're going to come in with a speech of unity and how they stand for all people.
Right. Okay. Well, and that, yeah, that's a really good point though. They stand for all people. They don't think that our children or people like that are on the same level as humans.
No.
And we all need to really ask ourselves what we think of that with humans. Are all humans humans, or are there some that are less human, or that are so, in our opinion or from our perspective, so different that they don't get full human status? I think that's super interesting. But and then I ask myself, well, do I think that about some people? And yeah, I think I do. I wouldn't say it's like a group of people. It's usually individuals, like certain criminals. I'm one of those true crime women. I love true crime. And there are some criminals that I'll be like, I mean, I still think that's a human and there's a human in there. And I try to recognize and find the humanity in everyone. But like, I'm not sure they're the same.
Right.
So I can see how it happens if
Right.
if you bought into that or convinced yourself. So it makes me kind of wonder if I need to check my own perception of human beings who,
Right.
I don't know. That's really interesting. But they hate our kids. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, okay, so the preliminary injunctions against the Biden's administration protections have significant impacts for trans students' rights. So let's actually break down, does Kamala bring more hope to our cause? Oh, any. I just don't know. I need to know the other ticket. I Yeah, I just
Yeah,
don't know.
couple things. I am blue no matter who. They are red no matter who. So I am blue. I'm so sorry about my dog, y'all. So that's my stance. Period. Done. I'm done playing these
Right,
games where we try to have
right.
more character and we try to hold our people accountable. Done. Send me a blue ticket. Tell me Kamala Harris, I don't know, fucking hung up
I mean,
donkey.
I'm voting blue regardless. I'm voting blue regardless,
I'm just there
but
at
I'm
this point. They
just.
will. So why wouldn't I? This is what we're up against. As far as bringing hope,
I think I'm just worried about her when she gets the ticket. I don't know that she'll get the ticket,
right.
to be honest. I think you're going to see, we got to wait and see the next 2 weeks because what
And I
stands
like
out
her.
to me
I really do.
significantly today is that there were 5 of the biggest heads who said nothing about backing her. They praised Biden for stepping aside, but they did not mention one single word about backing her. And that leads me to believe that there is still some discussion.
And that's
All I care about is the stance and what their
right.
platform, the Democratic
I care
platform,
about winning.
protects our kids,
Right. I
right?
care about winning 100%. I don't everything else. And I hate to say that. I hate to be that person, but I have given up. I have just given up. There was a day I thought I had some kind of, commitment to, I don't know, even what I'm trying to say at this point, some kind of values or ethics or something at this point. I don't care. Robert F. Kennedy, brainworm, sure. Why just make it happen and we'll figure it out from there. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't even.
I feel that frustration. I feel it. I feel it.
Sure. But I do like Kamala. I think Kamala's a lovely
Right?
person. I don't know if she's ready for the presidency. I don't know if any of these people are ready for the presidency. I don't have any idea. But, I wonder how much internalized misogyny is part of that, because I had feelings about Hillary running where I was like, I don't think this is a good idea, y'all. And it's not because I just know how the rest of the world, even on our side, we have this internalized misogyny, period. On top of that, she's a Black woman. There is still internalized racism, and we can't act like there's not. We cannot act like that's not a thing just because it's us. We have to confront that. And I think that that's going to happen too. And that concerns me. Doesn't mean that she couldn't do a great job, that she's not great. It means that we have to figure out what's in ourselves in order to unite ourselves, because they are uniting against a horrible human being and they don't care that he's horrible. They don't care at all.
No.
People that I've talked to and I've said, what about this man's character? What about all these felonies? What about the things he does? What about the things he says about soldiers, disabled people, women? And they're like, man, he pushes our agenda. So we need to get on board with that. Stop worrying. Just
right. Right. I just yeah, yeah. No, I don't feel like it's tumultuous, but I do feel very unsure footing at the moment, just because of this like drop today. Because I hit Jenny up and was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm ready for the show, but what just happened?" So, understand. I vote Labor regardless too. Sadly, Vermin always getting. Yeah, Annie. I couldn't believe Farage got in over there. So I do understand that. So let's talk about what these injunctions do for our trans students in those areas, right? So because they decide that, they create a patchwork of protections, blah, 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 I read through that, sorry. In states where the injunctions are in place, trans students may face increased discrimination and a lack of support from their educational institutions. This can affect their ability to participate fully in school activities, access facilities that align with their gender identity, and receive the same level of protection from harassment and discrimination as their cisgender peers. Well, think about the mental health impacts that has as well. We know that population of students has the hardest time right now with depression, with mental health disorders, with substance abuse disorders. And so now we're going to have states that say, yeah, it's free to discriminate on top of it too. And what does that do for our kids?
It kills them is what it does. And I am now to where I believe that is the point. The point is to eradicate. Somebody said it right there with the last RNC. Someone said, we've got to eradicate this. And that's the point. If they're mentally ill and they don't have resources and they're living homeless and they're on drugs, what's the next step? Death. That's the point. We got to stop acting like it's not.
Yeah.
It's
and this again, and I guess because you talk about the legal battles that are going on in school, and we.
I don't know.
You're in Oklahoma. You're in Oklahoma, and this straight up makes me think of Nex Benedict.
Mm-hmm.
It came out. Nex was bullied for like a year beforehand. No one did anything.
Yeah, because they don't care. They think that kid deserved it. They deserve to be bullied. How dare they be different? How dare them? So, they don't care. And then when it comes out that it's self-inflicted, it's, well, see, those people are nuts.
Right.
There's plenty of regular, cisgender, straight, everyday people don't do that and take that action all the time. And it's sad then, but, when it's one of ours, it's, well, maybe try not being different. Try that. Have you tried that? I don't know.
And I think that, this also, when you start going into this brings to highlight the difference between your federal rights, right? Your federal and state rights. And so now there's like all this in-between blurring where states want to say, well, I can overrule what federal does. Guys, federal's always overruled state. Always. That's why Roe versus Wade smacked down on all the states that tried to create bans, because it set a precedent. A precedent. Precedent means that this is established law. When you have judges, Supreme Court judges, SCOTUS, when they come in, they have to go through confirmation hearings. They are asked about precedent. Do they believe in stare decisis? Because it's very important that you go back and you use established precedent. And we will go into that when we start breaking down Chevron. Whew. But we got a court that's kind of in a tailspin. Certainly off doing whatever they want to do, not what they were appointed to do, which was to interpret law.
Oh, no, they're doing exactly what they were appointed by Trump to do. They are absolutely fulfilling the role that they were appointed to fulfill. This is exactly what was supposed to happen. 100%.
Right.
No, it's not what is supposed to happen, but it was the plan all along, and they are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
That was their agenda.
Yeah, 100%.
So the U.S. Supreme Court recently issued a ruling that temporarily blocked the Biden administration's new Title IX regulations, which include protections for gender identity in a 6-3 decision. The court determined that the Department of Education overstepped its authority by extending Title IX's anti-discrimination provisions to cover sexual orientation and gender identity. This ruling affects the 14 states I mentioned before: Kansas, Alaska, Idaho, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Montana, Ohio, Tennessee, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. I am really surprised you and I are not in these categories.
Completely
Chief Justice Roberts, writing for the majority, argued the new regulation prioritizes the desires of trans students over the privacy concerns of other students. Justice Sotomayor, Alina Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented, emphasizing the importance of protecting against discrimination and maintaining the core principles of equality. The decision has created widespread uncertainty for schools nationwide as they navigate the conflict between federal and state regulations regulating trans students' rights. This ruling is part of a broader pattern of the Supreme Court's conservative majority limiting the scope of federal regulatory power, often siding with arguments that emphasize state rights and limited federal overreach. The ongoing legal battles and the Supreme Court's decision highlight the contentious nature of gender identity protections and the challenges in achieving consistent and equitable treatment for trans students across our country. We're going to keep talking about the Supreme Court, but yeah, that it's very apparent who is for protecting, like it comes out just about in every single, right? That comes out, you're like, yeah, we know these are going to uphold it and these aren't. It's clear. But I have to question our SCOTUS when you had 5 of the 6 conservatives that were elected in confirmation hearings asked whether or not the president is above the law. And they all answered the question that no one is above the law. And yet a recent immunity hearing, they claimed quite the opposite. So I kind of feel like when our Supreme Court goes off on its own agenda, it's no longer working for the people. That's why the SCOTUS's here in the U.S., SCOTUS's reputation is the lowest it's ever been. I believe we're sitting at 17% right now.
Deservedly so.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. You can't strip all that down and not expect to get backlash. Like you just can't. So let's go into Chevron. Chevron we had Roe versus Wade was one of the big things last year. Chevron is one of the really biggies this year. So the U.S. Supreme Court recently overturned the Chevron Doctrine in a landmark decision, significantly altering the landscape of federal regulatory power. This doctrine, established in 1984, required courts to defer to federal agencies' expertise and their reasonable interpretation of ambiguous laws. The deference allowed agencies to have considerable authority in interpreting. So whether you were talking about the FDA over food and drugs, whether you were talking about the EPA over environment, whether you were talking about the Department of Education, housing authorities, the CDC, they've stripped this now. In a 6-3 ruling, the Supreme Court decided courts should no longer defer to agencies' interpretation, emphasizing that it's judiciary role to interpret the law. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the majority, argued Chevron doctrine was fundamentally misguided and that judicial deference to agency rulemaking conflicted with the court's duty to interpret the law. The implications of this decision are far-reaching. By curtailing the power of federal agencies, the ruling could lead to increased challenges to agency regulations and a more significant role of the judiciary interpreting laws, which in other words means our states can go half-cocked, full-blazed, as far as they want, and that can't be stopped until it's taken all the way up to the Supreme Court and ruled on, which can take years. Whether that's in our environment, whether that's about trans rights, whether that's about healthcare, access to healthcare, whether you have clean drinking water, whether you're taught education or whether you're taught propaganda, the shift may result in greater legal uncertainties, obviously. For LGBT protections, the impact could be substantial. Federal agencies such as the Department of Education and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission have been instrumental in enforcing protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. With the Chevron doctrine overturned, these agencies may face more challenges in defending their interpretation of anti-discrimination laws. This could lead to a rollback of protections for the LGBT community. as courts may not uphold agency interpretations that extend these protections. For instance, the Department of Health and Human Services recently faced a federal judge's ruling that blocked anti-discrimination protections for LGBTQ patients in healthcare settings. The judge argued the HHS overstepped its authority. The decision underscores the importance of legislative clarity and the potential need for Congress to explicitly address LGBTQ rights in federal statutes, which is what we've been kind of begging for to begin with. Yeah, I just... The federal judge who ruled that the Department of Health and Human Services overstepped its authority is Judge Louis Garola Jr. of the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Mississippi and was appointed by George Bush W. Additionally, Judge Mark Pittman of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas also ruled against HHS in a separate case involving health privacy rules and was appointed by Trump. These rulings reflect the broader judicial pushback against federal agency regulations, particularly in light of the recent Supreme Court decision to overturn Chevron. And it just, the overturning of precedent, 40 years, 50 years, Chevron had over 50,000 cases that have been determined on that one doctrine that were upheld. And I feel like if I thought infrastructure was poor before, like the bricks, the Lego, like the structure that we had just went with Chevron. Like I don't even, yeah, we're making way for people to go really broad with their rules. And it's the implications are gonna hurt the marginalized the most. The most.
I can't figure out the purpose is, like what the end game is. You know, is it just so that a lot of people will cease to exist, that they will die? Is it because you can't, like, I understand, I mean, I get it. I understand wanting everyone to be like you, think like you, want the same things you want. I really do understand that, but you can't make people do that. So then, like, I don't understand what the point of all this is, because you just leave a lot of people suffering and dying.
I feel like it's fear. I mean, A is for power, right? And control. I mean, that's a lot of it. But usually I think it's about like, fear that they fear
of what that
they
is,
fear our kids.
Like, no, right. I agree. They're kids. But then when we talk about, you know, I just like, is the idea, well, what I want it to look like in the end is for them all to be back in the closet, or for that to just, I don't want to hear about it anymore, or I want them all to, you know, expire. I don't want to keep using certain words on here because we do go to YouTube. YouTube will get mad at you with enough of word usage. And so I guess so. I guess the idea is, well, we'll just make it so uncomfortable that nobody will do that anymore. And then we don't have to see it. I just don't know.
Right. And I mean, and I'd say that because we've got that going here in our state. I'm sure you're seeing it everywhere in your state too, the pushback. And I don't know what their end goal is. Is it like, and I do think what I was getting at is I think part of that is fear-based as far as they just fear change. And so there's this pushback against all of it, like it's all evil because, and I don't know if it's from, they just refuse to understand.
Yeah.
Right? To see someone different, or if it is so just outside of their purview, maybe they don't know anyone. Right? And honestly, the truth is probably that people around them didn't feel safe to tell them. But you know what I mean? Like, I do see that there are certain people that until they do know someone, it takes them that shift to finally go, oh, okay, now I see the human aspect.
I mean, yeah, but I would even say that you know, a lot of what I see out of even my own family, and I love my family and I'm grateful my family does what they can. I don't even know if grateful is the word. I'm glad my family can do what they can. I have gratitude for the bare minimum, but is definitely more of a, like, my dad just misgendered my kid for an entire phone conversation. She. And I'm like, he, stop acting like you don't know this. We've been doing this for 3 years now. Stop acting like you don't know this. Is that it's still just kind of like, I mean, I love them because they're my grandchild, but that's it. That's
right.
it.
They can't see past that. Like, they're willing to extend that because it's blood, but for anybody else, no.
They're more tolerant, but that's all we've reached is this place of tolerance, not this place of, I think that person deserves the same human rights as everybody else. Like, I'll tolerate them. They're allowed to be here, you know, can't stop them from being here, but I will actively, absolutely 100% vote for their utter destruction and demise. Don't. Oh, well.
Yeah.
They'll get over it. They'll be fine. They'll adjust. They can go back to being the way I thought they should be in the first place. And then they won't have any problems. I really do think that that's somewhere in their head.
Yeah, no, I definitely do too. I think if you push back long enough, they're like, oh, they'll go back in the closet and we don't have to deal with this anymore.
Right. Which, you know, is funny because it's like our side wants to do that to like racists. We want racists to be that uncomfortable. And that's wild to me. That's wild to me. We just know we're not the same. I'm trying to see.
It's not the same. It's not the same cloth.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
No matter how you want to push it, it's not the same. The recent federal rulings that block the Biden administration's healthcare protections for trans people have significant impacts for trans people seeking healthcare. These rulings prevent the enforcement of regulations that would have prohibited insurers and medical professionals from denying care, such as hormone therapy, gender transition surgeries based on gender identity. As a result, trans individuals in affected states face increased barriers to accessing essential medical treatments, leading to increased disparities in healthcare access and outcomes. Without these protections, trans people are more vulnerable to discrimination in healthcare settings. This can manifest in various ways, such as being denied coverage for gender-affirming procedures, facing refusal of care from healthcare providers, or encountering hostile or uninformed medical staff. Such experiences deter trans individuals from seeking necessary medical care, exacerbating health disparities and negatively impacting their overall well-being, which again plays back into, we know that they're the largest subset of substance abusers, of mental health disorders, of unfortunately suicidal ideation, and of harming themselves. And we're creating things that only increase that.
We're not just talking about, because I know that, you know, there are people who would hear this and in a way kind of celebrate this like, great, because they shouldn't get their hormone replacement or their surgery taken care of. But we're not just talking about that. We're talking about hostile environments going for a broken leg or a heart attack. and you've got to just want them to die. There's no other explanation, because we're not just talking about access to gender affirming care, which is important, medically necessary, of course. But I don't want anyone to think that that's just this big unachievable goal. We're talking about going to the doctor because, you know, your blood sugar is wrong.
And not being treated.
Or
inhumanely.
Right. And then the person, like, who wants to go back? And plenty of people are going to be like, well, there's different doctors and there's going to be woke doctors and there'll be this doctors. I'm in Oklahoma. We have like a medical desert going on in certain parts of our state where there aren't
North Carolina, same thing.
Enough doctors. Where are they going to go? Every place is not Oklahoma City. Every place is not Tulsa, which are at least larger. You're talking like Okemah, Okfuskee. There's probably one damn gynecologist in the whole city of freaking Pryor. You know what I mean? There's not like then what? So then what happens? And I've experienced this as a woman whenever I had pain and needed to have my uterus removed, and for a condition that apparently is super freaking common, but it was like, we don't know. Have you tried not making this up? Have you tried taking an antidepressant? And I'm like, you don't understand. I'm hurting. 7 years. Took me 7 years to get that done. And it gets to where you think, I'm not even going to go. I'm done. And you don't feel right. Things painful. What if I had like some kind of weird cancer? And you think, nobody's going to listen to me. I'm going to get treated like this. I'm going to get talked to like that. I'm not even going to mess with it. I'll just take more ibuprofen.
Right.
It's a deadly game. It's a deadly game.
It's a really deadly game. A really deadly game.
Compassionate access to freaking healthcare. I'm so scared. I'm so worried. It's okay. It's okay.
I think the broader, when we talk about those particular rulings, is they create this climate of insecurity, of uncertainty, of fear for our trans kids, for our trans siblings, the trans community as a whole, when they want to seek health care. Where is it safe to seek health care? The lack of consistent federal protections means the level of care and respect trans individuals receive will vary widely depending on where they live. Well, if you live in somewhere that is discriminatory and you don't have the money to move, what are your options? Like, seriously.
If you don't like it here, leave. How would you like for me to? I want to. Send me money. I will get the frick out of Oklahoma today.
Right?
How do you want me to do that? How do you want me to go about doing that? Please tell me. Tell me how.
Like that.
Find a job in another state and afford another state and leave my aging parents. Tell me how all that works out. And they don't care. They don't care. Well, if it's bad enough, you'll just move. Okay, well, when somebody does that from one country across the border because their life is so horrific, or they're fleeing, oppression, or they're fleeing violence, then we go, put them in a cage. I don't get it. I don't know what to do. Anyway, send me money if you want to help me get out of Oklahoma.
Right? Like, I already was fearing, like, what would happen if the person who is running on the GOP ticket gets governor here in North Carolina, that my kid would become a refugee of the state. And now, after Vance being elected with Trump, I'm just like, I think my kid just became a U.S. refugee.
Don't even get me started on that, man. Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
No, like it's hypocrisy all the way around.
At one point he told his grandmother, he has it in his book, tells his grandmother, I think I might be gay. And she was like, no, you're not. Do you really want to suck? You know what? And so we probably have a closeted, angry, bitter, traumatized. I'm going to give him that. Being raised by an addict in poverty is horrible. It's a horrible, horrible thing that shapes you forever. And some people become more compassionate because of it. And some people say, I'm never going to do that. And they never do it. And some people become addicts. And some people become hateful and angry. And they blame everything except the person they should blame, which is the addict. Instead of healing and going on from that, no, we have just a very damaged, closeted, angry, hateful person. That's all that he is and all that he ever will be.
Yeah. No, Jenny pretty much summed that one up. So let's go into some of the history of what our court system is, right? What does it do? The judiciary has historically played a crucial role in safeguarding rights and advancing equality in the United States. Landmark Supreme Court cases like Brown versus Board of Education in 1954 ended racial segregation in public schools, establishing that separate educational facilities are inherently unequal and setting a precedent for future civil rights advancements. Similarly, Roe versus Wade in 1973 recognized women's rights to choose an abortion, framing it as a matter of privacy under the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment. These decisions exemplify the judiciary's role in interpreting the Constitution to protect individual rights against discriminatory practices and government overreach in the context of LGBTQ rights. The judiciary has also been pivotal The Supreme Court's decision in Lawrence versus Texas of 2003 struck down laws criminalizing consensual same-sex conduct, affirming the right to privacy and personal autonomy. More recently, Obergefell versus Hodges in 2015 legalized same-sex marriage nationwide, recognizing the right to marry is a fundamental liberty protected by the Constitution. These rulings have significantly advanced LGBTQ rights, ensuring greater equality and protection under the law. The judiciary's role in safeguarding these rights is now being undermined by the overreaching shift in power, highlighting the need for clear legislative action to ensure consistent and robust protections for everyone. And of course, we'll get into, we know what happened with Roe versus Wade. Right. And then there's more. I mean, honestly, because Obergefell versus Hodges in the dissent for Roe versus Wade, actually, under the 14th Amendment, Thomas argued that several things had been misinterpreted according to that doctrine, including same-sex marriage was one of them. Obergefell. He went all the way back for everything until you got to interracial marriage. Now, I would question that one, except for he's married to a white woman. So that kind of explains why he didn't question that one. Here are some historical documents that emphasize the role in protecting human rights and ensuring equality, which would be a conflict with the recent rulings limiting LGBTQ protections. Okay, so the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The U.S. Constitution, along with the first 10 amendments known as the Bill of Rights, establishes the framework for protecting individual liberties and ensuring equal protection under the law. The judiciary's role in interpreting these provisions has been crucial in safeguarding our rights and addressing discrimination since the court began. Brown versus Board of Education. We just talked about this one. This ruling set a precedent for future civil rights advancements. Again, important for protecting human rights. Lawrence versus Texas, ensuring that discriminatory laws are overturned because of the fact that we were protecting LGBTQ rights. Obergefell versus Hodges, a decision to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide, recognizing the right to marry as a fundamental liberty protected by the Constitution. The ruling demonstrated the judiciary's critical role in advancing these rights and ensuring equality. These documents illustrate their historical role in protecting human rights and ensuring equal treatment. This recent shift kind of looks at maybe that's not quite what's going on with SCOTUS anymore, and calls into question, honestly, what should we be doing about the court? And more people should be looking at that, talking to their local politicians about that, because we do need more oversight, more ethics protections, something, because the checks and balances aren't there. I see you over there shaking your head.
100%.
Jenny's like, yep.
I'm just sorry, I had to jump up earlier. I saw my dog over on the bed eating my new Apple Watch. It's okay. He was just chewing on the band, but I had to get up and get it.
Your Pride band?
Pride band. You want to see it? It's so cool. Why is it?
I was going to say, does it have little chew marks in it?
Probably. Look, it says Pride. It's a little difficult to see in this light. It's a little rainbowy band.
I saw when you posted it like last week. Oh, that's so cool.
I love
Yay.
it.
So what I found very interesting, so I didn't just want to talk about like where our judiciary has upheld laws. I wanted to go further back about how we established our courts. So let's take it back even further, guys. Let's go back before the United States was the United States. The Magna Carta was foundational to the U.S. Constitution, signed in 1215, and established the principle that everyone, including the king, is subject to the law. It introduced key concepts such as the right to a fair trial and protection against unlawful imprisonment, which significantly influenced the founding fathers as they drafted the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Magna Carta's emphasis on limiting governmental powers and protecting individual rights resonated with the American colonists who sought to create a government that safeguarded liberty and justice. Regarding the Federalist Papers, particularly Federalist number 78, Alexander Hamilton provided a robust defense of an independent judiciary. Hamilton argued that the judiciary must be independent to serve as a check on the other branches of government and to protect individual rights. He described the judiciary as the least dangerous branch because it has neither force nor will, but merely judgment. This means the judiciary does not have that power to enforce its decisions like the executive or create laws like the legislature, but it plays a crucial role in interpreting law and ensuring that the other branches do not exceed their constitutional authority. Hamilton emphasized that life tenure for judges, contingent on good behavior, was essential for maintaining judicial independence. This tenure supposedly protects judges from political pressures and allows them to make decisions based solely on the law and the Constitution. Let me pause that point and say, anybody heard about the investigations into Thomas and Alito? That's not quite true anymore now, is it?
The founding fathers are just rolling over in their graves at this point.
Right, they are. Yeah, no. Hamilton also highlighted the importance of judicial review, the power of the courts to declare legislative and executive actions unconstitutional. This power ensures the government remains within its constitutional limits and protects individual rights from potential abuses by other branches. These historical documents and arguments underscore the judiciary's critical role in safeguarding rights and maintaining the balance of power, a role that's being challenged by obviously recent judicial decisions limiting our protections for LGBTQ people. We can't emphasize further how far out we are going from what our courts were supposed to represent and who they were supposed to protect. Our power has been bought in this country. And I don't know how we get it back, but we have to.
I mean, it was always an experiment. This country was always an experiment. Maybe any is like that. And, Rome was an empire too. Empires just do what empires do. And what empires do is they fall. And, it wouldn't surprise me. I think it's happening. And I don't know what you do with that. I really don't. I think It's especially difficult when everybody has their backs against the wall. Everybody is suffering and struggling so much. And I was talking to a gal the other day who was like, well, we don't have any unity, on these big social movements. Well, first of all, people are so worn thin. It's difficult for anybody to find any kind of time, energy, resources. It's difficult. Furthermore, big problem, and I already highlighted it earlier. We are the side of holding people accountable. We hold everybody accountable, and that's great. And we should, and those are great values to have. But we do it to the point that every person has this kind of checklist, or every subset of the left has its own little checklist. And if somebody doesn't check every single box, then they are no good. They are not woke enough. They are not anti-capitalist enough. They are not left enough. They are not this enough. And they get canceled, washed aside, done, no. And there's so many of those subsets. And that's where the lack of unity comes from. And I think it's kind of selfish, honestly. I do get it. Of course, I want my needs and the things that I care about the most. And that probably in this show seems like transgender folks. And what I wish I was maybe expressing better is that it's human beings and it's the right to autonomy. But for the sake of this show, we are being specific because this does affect our kids and other people we love and care about, and ultimately human beings. But it's about the autonomy and dignity of individual human beings, who aren't hurting anyone else. So I don't know. I just had to go on a tangent again for a second.
And no, I mean that is the truth of it. I wish I could say that I was surprised, but I'm not. I wish we were further along than we are, obviously. I just don't want to see us rolled back further. And I would love to see something fixed from some of the rollbacks we've already done recently that just I never expected in my lifetime.
Well, we're only going backwards in law on paper.
Right.
But the movement of what is can't be taken backwards. So when it comes to reproductive rights, they've only limited the ability to do it. Sorry, I've got a little gnat running around here. They've only limited the ability to do it safely and legally. They haven't, and we all knew that, and we all said that. You're not going to stop this. You're not going to end abortive care. What you're, legal safe. You're just going to end safe and legal abortive care. You're not going to stop people. But trust me, I mean, the dark web is for way more than the absolute worst of stuff. You can find out how to unprofify. I don't know what the word is. It's out there.
Evacuate, maybe.
It's really not that difficult information to find out. You can find underground resources and groups that will help you get to states that you need to get to. You can find resources that will help you pay. It's just a lot of work that people who already maybe don't have resources, and certainly very young people, don't know how to do.
Right.
And I think that, but you're only going to roll back the law. You're not going to roll back the action. You're not going to roll back the thought or the movement or the intent. You're not going to roll that back. There's none of that. So you'll just oppress and oppress until there is a violent response. And I don't just mean violent in some kind of physical violent way. Violent can be a lot of things. And I think it'll happen. That's not what I want. I'm not a violent person. I don't like that kind of stuff.
I mean, we can see the violence that erupted from Roe versus Wade and the states that pushed further bans, and it's already come back that, for instance, Texas increased their infant mortality rate and their maternal mortality rate by 23%. They didn't save children, they lost more. And the reason why they lost more is that infant mortality rate and maternal mortality rate go out to the first year after a child is born. And what they found was babies with congenital birth defects that would have been picked up, that quite frankly would have not been carried to full term, were being carried to full term, and these parents were having to bury their very young babies.
Like, that is just, I can't wrap my head around that. Because a lot
You've
of
tortured the parents.
Pregnancies are wanted, and now you've got do you know how expensive a funeral is? Do you know how expensive a cremation is? Let alone making someone go through the motions of that.
Right.
Where an abortion is, it's, I imagine for some people it's a very traumatic and horrible thing, especially when that pregnancy was wanted. For a lot of people, for most women, it's a relief. I think it would be a relief for me to know that I wasn't going to bring a child into the world that was just going to live in pain and suffering for a couple weeks before it passed on its own.
Right.
The heartache of the family, but everybody's different. I can't assume anybody would feel any kind of way about any of those situations.
I just think it should come down to the family and the doctor, not to a state, not to a politician, not to a judge.
Parking lots. And I had somebody challenge me on that recently. They were like, that doesn't happen. I work in healthcare. And I'm like, what are you at the foot doctor? Yes, it is happening. There have been lots and lots and lots of women who stood up and said, I'd almost bleed out in a dang parking lot. Nobody would touch me.
Go Google the South.
Entire meetings about how many organs a woman can lose before somebody will, what are you talking? That doesn't make sense. And so now, I found probably a lot of people have seen it circulating. I know I saw it on Facebook. There's a Google Doc with doctors all in every state who will do sterilization for women without caring how old they are, not asking any questions, no permission from a man. And I really see more and more young people probably, but that's another dang expense. it's another stinking expense that most
to
people can't.
just to protect themselves from not being forced to do something that they don't want to do with their own bodies.
Got an 18-year-old girl who does that, and then, oh, the horror, everybody's fear. Well, what if she changes her mind? Well, it's too late now. She did what she did out of some fear because she thought she had no other options. And I don't know.
Right.
Their point is just to make either more impoverished babies,
right,
or more
right,
white babies. I don't understand any of it. None of it makes sense. Why do you want more children born into poverty? Why do you want more children born into homes that don't want them, can't care for them? Why do you want more children born into situations that are so volatile and so harmful to those children and their parents? I don't understand it. And now, I mean, don't even start on Project 2025, which...
Right. I mean, before 2025, right before Project 2025, like, I can tell you that all three of my children were like, I don't want to have kids.
Yeah.
Because of what's going on in our country. I don't want to have kids. I'm not passing this on.
Yeah.
It ends here. Like, that is, and there is a generation, I've got a friend of mine who's like 29, 30, and her parents are constantly on her, when are we going to have grandkids? And she's like, you're never going to have grandkids.
Never. When you vote differently.
She's like, I don't want them. She was like, she just barely moved out of the house with her 4-year degree, working, and finally was able to like buy her own, like get her own apartment. And she was just like, I just got out. And you're asking, like, I don't want to look for a man. I'm trying to pay off my bills, and I'm certainly not having kids to add to it. And the hellfire that we're in. So we can keep talking about. I'm gonna give y'all 5 additional ways that y'all can help. You can register to vote. That's your first one. Your voice matters. Ensure you're registered and participate in your elections to support leaders and policies that protect and advance trans rights. Speak out. Use your platform to advocate for equality. Share your stories, educate others, and stand up against discrimination. Every voice counts in the fight for justice. Join local and national organizations that support LGBTQ rights. Together, we create a stronger, more inclusive community. Educate yourself and others. Stay informed about the issues that are faced by the LGBT community and share this knowledge with others. Education is a powerful tool for change. And just a little final historical perspective from Thomas Jefferson. The care of human life and happiness and not their destruction is the first and only legitimate object of good government. I'll read that again. The care of human life and happiness and not their destruction is the first and only legitimate object of good government. Let's honor this principle by working together to protect the rights of individuals regardless of their gender identity or their sexual orientation. No matter how far back I went, and granted, we all know that when the Constitution was written and it said we are all created equal, that stood for about 1/5 of our population at the time. Right? We understand that. We know that we have grown since that moment. But even the documents that they base these are our historical documents, our foundational documents. We're speaking to the fact that human life was all to be cared for, not destroyed. Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers. And the fact they used a Magna Carta, which back to 1215, which said everybody should be treated equally, and that nobody, not even the king, was above the law. Like, again, this is where we started these frameworks from to build upon. So why is it okay now for us to say that some people don't deserve life? I just, right?
What a heavy episode.
Yeah, no. I told you they were all going to be kind of, bang.
It's heavy. It's heavy right now, and it's probably going to be, sorry, that's my alarm to give my dog his heart meds. It's just probably going to be heavy for a bit. But great news, I start therapy on Wednesday. Isn't that exciting?
Yay!
Yeah, I had to get a therapist. I was like, I am not going to make it. I will not make it through this election with my marriage
yeah.
if I don't have someone to talk to.
Woo!
And I highly suggest it. I don't want to do it. I don't like talking about my feelings at all or like what's going on because I just think it's dumb. But I think a lot of that is because I kind of grew up in an environment and, you know, we all like, oh, my childhood, but it is what it is. And there have been a lot of years in my life where it's like, I tell you, for example, a partner, I tell you that something bothers me. I tell you that it's very hurtful. You don't do anything to change it. Therefore, what I say just does not matter. So now I'm talking and getting upset and bringing all this up, which is extremely uncomfortable, only for nothing to change. Like, why say anything? I just won't say anything. And, you know, a lot of us don't realize how dangerous things are when someone quits communicating, when they just don't say anything anymore. So I'm going to try to speak more, and I'm going to try to let somebody help me. And, you know, yeah, again,
it's hard. I mean, I think it's hard when you get into a position of never expressing your emotions because you just felt like you were silenced, or that if you spoke, just nobody was listening, right? And
it makes me wonder, like, is that the whole point of like toxic masculinity? Is that why so many men are so the way they are, because they don't talk about things like that? And I mean, kiss to all you men out there, hashtag not all men, but I don't want to be like that. That is not what I aspire to be. So
that's what I left.
My magical femininity is therapy. My sacred femininity.
Mine's not even femininity. I just realized that I realized at some point that I was curbing who I was and just about everything that I said, or I just had to be quiet because I wanted to snap at, honestly, the opinions of who I was with. And
I want to break stuff. Like, I don't want to hurt people. I'm just not a violent, but I like want to break stuff. Set a fire. Not really. I don't know. Not really a pyro kind of girl, but I want to like get an axe and like chop wood. But I can't because I'm old now and my hips hurt. So I'm not going to do that. My hips are too sore. Amber,
girl, let's not talk about it.
I know it's getting rough. I know this is hard. I appreciate that we met anyway, though, because having you to listen to, talk to about it, it really does just, it lightens the load. It can feel very, very isolating to look at this world, especially in states like where Amber and I are, which are heavily, heavily red. And it starts to feel very, very isolating. And you almost don't want to participate in your community because, you know, I'm like, I don't want to live suspicious and paranoid of people. But what other choice do I have? You know, I just don't know.
I did that. Like, a lot of people were like, do you speak out in North Carolina? And I'm like, no, like my intention was actually to work on help legislation in North Carolina, which was to protect rights. And then the second I realized that they were we got 2 red supermajorities. Like, we did have one house that wasn't. And then when it switched to 2 reds, I was like, well, there is no way I can get anything done now. Because they're not even going to listen. I mean, the House is not even going to listen with the amount of anti-trans legislation that was moving through. There's nothing I could do to go up there and say anything right now.
You know, it puts a target on your back. It puts a target on your kid's back. It exposes you
on your kid's back.
It exposes you and then them. I actually have a documentary filmmaker who has come to see me twice, and she recently reached out to me and was like, hey, I want to focus on you a little more and what it's like, you know, living in the States and and I'm like, I mean, that's cool. I just have to be really, really careful not to say my son's name. I've said, I don't want you sharing my last name. You know, I mean, obviously my Mason name is out there. Somebody will find me, but I don't know. You're always torn between that. When do I speak out and when do I stay quiet for their safety? But I've brought it up with my kid and he's been like, no, I am who I am. I'm out there publicly.
That's fine.
I'm uncomfortable. Let's do it. Let's do this. I'm like, oh, okay.
Mine's kind of like, go ahead, just kind of leave me out of it. I don't want the attention. And, but we've talked about this in this room before, but my son changed his name. It is legally changed. Like, the last name's not even the same. So there isn't a way, hopefully, to track. And that was another reason why I was kind of, again, wasn't going to come out in my state until he was safe. Like, until we could kind of separate and somebody couldn't go, oh, let me target. Yeah, go ahead and try. Um, I, I wouldn't want to run up on that kid anyway. I'll be honest. Like, don't mess.
That must be like a thing because my kid's the exact same way. Like, he's small but mighty.
Right?
He
Right.
does not tolerate anything.
Yeah. Mom will shut you down so fast.
You wish you hadn't. Well, always a pleasure, Amber. Always a pleasure for those who are still with us. Thank you for finishing with us. Yeah, like love each other. Talk to a trans person.
Right.
Talk to the parent of a trans person. Get to know us. We just love our kids. And we love your kids. Right. Love everybody's kids. And we do want the world to be safe. And your kids are safe from our kids. Everyone is safe from our kids. Our kids are just doing their thing. Everyone's in college. Like he doesn't want to do anything but live his life and one day have a car and
right.
He has a car. Right. Like he just wants to do the same thing that everybody in this country wants to do. So,
live their lives without being harassed.
Let's let these kids do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, join us next week at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock Central. I'm not sure what our topic is going to be. I need to check our email. We might have somebody who's checked in as a guest, and I need to go double check before I announce what that is. But y'all will.
I'm a great guest, but I can't get any of them to respond to me. I am going to reach out to Dennis Baker because I think he's an incredible guy. He is running for the Senate here, or wait. Anyway, he's running for something here.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I feel like the documentary that I sent you the other week from Texas, I think that person may have reached out to us. And if so, then I want to bring her on and we can show her documentary and talk about that. So I think she has responded to me, right? So I'm not sure. So I don't want to announce it without us knowing. We may have a guest next week. We may not have a guest next week, but I probably will put that out sometime tomorrow with the invite. So if you're still with us or not, you check this out later. Thank you for joining us. Love y'all. We will see y'all next week. And with that, we're out. Bye.
Bye.